With this in mind, my office created a new and entirely unique human trafficking initiative. Together with our state and federal law enforcement partners, my human trafficking prosecutors and investigators are conducting long-term proactive investigations into these sex and laboring trafficking targets. As part of this initiative, we have also developed unprecedented partnerships and coalitions with social service providers who assist us during human trafficking takedowns and ongoing investigations to step in immediately to provide services for our victims. In January of 2010, we created the Cook County Human Trafficking Task Force, which is led in partnership with the United States Attorney's Office and two of our social service partners. And since that time, our task force has become a model for other jurisdictions, and we have charged 54 defendants with human trafficking and related charges. In fact, the first person we charged under our new task force model was the pimp that I had mentioned earlier. His name is Quinn Sawyer, with a street name of P-Child. Not only did he punish one girl for acting her age, but he branded each and every girl he trafficked with tattoos, giving them all street names starting with the letter P, and engaged in brutal violence to numerous young girls and women. The prosecution of P-Child and his two enforcers was handled by our partners at the United States Attorney's Office, and we are very pleased to report that just last month, he was sentenced to 50 years in the federal prison for sex trafficking. Another extremely important part of our efforts has been to change our laws here in Illinois to give us better tools to attack this crime. We wrote the Illinois Safe Children's Act, which became law in August of 2010. This law is one of the most comprehensive and sweeping pieces of legislation to be enacted across the country, aimed at protecting children who are victims of sex trafficking. I'm very proud of this law because for several reasons. It's the most comprehensive law on the books in this country, and I say that with great pride because when our law went into effect, we have been contacted by other jurisdictions who are attempting to do the same thing in their respective states, and we have become the model that they have followed. And last summer when I was in New York at a conference, I was it was kind of nice because they kept talking to me about this law and asked how we possibly got it passed with one try. And you know that's hard to do down in Springfield. But New York has a similar law called the Safe Harbor Act. It took them 5 years to pass it. So we are very happy that we were able to pass this with one try, and the fact that this law gives us so many good tools to combat this crime. But the very first thing that it does is it decriminalizes underage prostitution. It takes those words right out of the statute, juvenile prostitution. Because, and I know everyone in this room will agree with me, you know, and as a mother of 14-year-old twin girls, I will not ever believe that a child that's 12 years old is out there prostituting herself, or it's something that she decided to do on her own. There is somebody that put her in this position, someone that is continuing to victimize her and to abuse her. So the first thing we thought was, how do we handle these cases differently than the traditional way we've been doing it? Well, number one, get rid of that. Get rid of juvenile prostitution, because that's not what it is. They are victims, and they need to be treated as victims. And what good does it do any of us if we arrest them and put them over at juvenile court for a day or two? They don't want to testify against their pimps, so we're not being effective. We certainly weren't convicting the bad guys, and we certainly weren't getting those young girls the services and the help that they needed. So our approach, we talk about it when we're on our task force, that it's victim-centered but not victim-built. And what I mean by that is that it's centered on helping these victims, but it's not. We're not going to totally rely on them and their testimony to convict the guy who's actually doing this. The other thing that this law does, it transfers the jurisdiction of these children from the criminal justice system to the child welfare system, which is of particular importance to those of you who support child labor. Perhaps more importantly, it gives state prosecutors like myself the ability to use wiretaps in criminal investigations of human trafficking rings. Before the law was implemented, local prosecutors could use wiretaps as a tool to go after people selling drugs, but not after people selling children. And I always thought that was a little backwards. And so just moments after the ink had dried on the governor's signature of this new law, we rolled up our sleeves and we got down to work. Last August, we announced the results of a long-term undercover investigation that employed the first full use of new legal provisions of the Illinois Safe Children's Act. Operation Little Girl Lost, which was an investigation into the forced sex trafficking of children and young women by Chicago street gang members. 10 defendants were charged with various felony counts of human trafficking. These defendants sold the sexual services of young women, some as young as 12, on the streets or in meetings arranged on the internet. In nearly every instance, the traffickers took all of the money collected in these transactions and they used drugs, threats, and intimidation to control the young women and prevent them from leaving their custody. The traffickers used physical and emotional abuse to control the girls, including threatening to kill them or their families, beatings, branding them with tattoos, and trunking. It's a new term that I learned during this investigation, and it's an extremely cruel punishment that involves actually locking the victim in the trunk of a car and driving around with her for an extended periods of time. And that was as punishment for whatever they felt the young woman did wrong. So I'm extremely proud to say that this investigation, accomplished with our law enforcement partners at the local, state, and federal level, became the first of its kind in a nation in which we use this law, and we were able to use state-based wiretap in human trafficking investigations. The ability to employ wiretaps in these investigations puts us light years ahead of where we were 4 years ago. So I'm very proud of the fact that our overall approach to addressing the crime of human trafficking has improved significantly.